Chattered or Foursquare, the app that made going outside a game until everyone got creeped out. Picture this. It's 2009, the iPhone App Store is barely a year old, and two guys named Dennis Crowley and Naveen Selvadurai have just launched an app that would fundamentally change how we think about sharing our location. Foursquare wasn't just another social network, it was a game that turned your entire city into a playground. The concept was brilliantly simple. Check into places you visit, earn points, unlock badges, and compete with friends to become the mayor of your favorite coffee shop or bar. Within months, millions of people were obsessively documenting every restaurant visit, every gym session, every late-night bodega run. Foursquare made sharing your location not just acceptable, but addictive. Users would go out of their way to visit new places just to unlock badges with names like Bender for checking into bars 4 nights in a row, or Gym Rat for visiting fitness centers multiple times a week. The app peaked at over 55 million users worldwide, generated hundreds of millions of check-ins, and seemed poised to become the next Facebook. Then something funny happened. People started realizing that broadcasting their exact location to the internet might not be such a great idea after all. Dennis Crowley wasn't a stranger to location-based social networking when he co-founded Foursquare in 2009. 6 years earlier, while studying at NYU's Interactive Telecommunications program, he had created a text message-based service called Dodgeball that let users alert friends when they were at bars or clubs. Google acquired Dodgeball in 2005 for an undisclosed sum, but the tech giant's lack of mobile focus meant the service languished in corporate purgatory. After Google shut down Dodgeball in 2009, Crowley teamed up with Selvadurai, a former colleague from the startup Vindigo, to create what Dodgeball should have been. They raised $1.35 million in seed funding and launched Foursquare at the South by Southwest Festival in Austin, Texas. The timing was perfect. Smartphones were becoming mainstream, GPS technology was getting more accurate, and social networking was exploding thanks to Facebook and Twitter. Within the first year, Foursquare attracted over 1 million users, who collectively generated more than 100 million check-ins. The app's gamification elements were revolutionary. Users earned points for checking in, bonus points for trying new venues, and special badges for various achievements. The mayorships were particularly brilliant, creating ongoing competition as users had to maintain regular visits to keep their titles. The social proof was immediate and overwhelming. By 2010, Foursquare was adding 35,000 new users every single day and processing over 3 million check-ins weekly. Celebrity users like Ashton Kutcher, who had over 100,000 followers on the platform, helped legitimize location sharing for mainstream audiences. The company raised $20 million in Series A funding led by Andreessen Horowitz, valuing the startup at $95 million. Major brands jumped on board faster than users unlocking their first adventurer badge. McDonald's offered special deals to mayors of their locations. Starbucks created exclusive promotions for frequent check-ins, and the History Channel partnered with Foursquare to create location-based historical content. The badges became cultural phenomena in their own right, with users planning entire evenings around unlocking achievements like Swarm for checking in with 50 or more other people, or Photogenic for uploading photos with 5 check-ins in a row. News outlets wrote extensive guides explaining how to earn every badge, and some users became so obsessed they would check into airports just to collect travel-related achievements. The app had successfully turned real-world exploration into a massive multiplayer game where your neighborhood was the playing field and social status was measured in mayorships and badge collections. But Foursquare's gamification success contained the seeds of its own problems. Power users emerged who gamed the system relentlessly, camping out at venues for hours or using GPS spoofing to artificially maintain mayorships. Some users accumulated hundreds of mayorships across multiple cities, defeating the entire purpose of recognizing regular customers. More concerning was how the competitive elements encouraged oversharing. People were checking in everywhere, including their homes, workplaces, and other locations they probably should have kept private. A website called Please Rob Me launched in 2010 to highlight the security risks, automatically aggregating Foursquare check-ins that indicated when users were away from home. The site's tagline, "So here we are. On one end, we're leaving lights on when we're going on a holiday, and on the other, we're telling everybody on the internet we're not home," crystallized growing concerns about location privacy. Stories emerged of stalkers using Foursquare to track victims, burglars monitoring check-ins to identify empty homes, and employers monitoring employee locations during work hours. The Federal Trade Commission began investigating location-based apps, and privacy advocates warned that Foursquare's detailed database of user movements could be subpoenaed by law enforcement or accessed by hackers. Despite having over 10 million registered users by early 2011, the privacy backlash was beginning to slow growth and make potential users think twice about constant location sharing. The competitive landscape shifted dramatically in 2010 when Facebook launched Facebook Places, essentially copying Foursquare's core check-in functionality and integrating it with their 500 million existing users. Google followed with Google Latitude, Twitter added location features, and suddenly every major tech platform was fighting for location sharing dominance. Facebook's approach was particularly devastating because they had the user base to make location sharing feel mainstream rather than niche. When your parents and coworkers were already on Facebook, checking in there felt more natural than maintaining a separate app just for locations. Foursquare fought back by emphasizing their superior recommendation engine and local discovery features, but the damage was done. By 2011, Facebook Places was processing millions of check-ins from users who might never have downloaded Foursquare in the first place. The competition intensified when Facebook acquired the location startup Gowalla in 2012. And when Apple integrated location sharing directly into iOS with Find My Friends. Foursquare's user growth began plateauing around 25 million registered users, and while check-ins continued increasing, the rate of growth slowed significantly. The company raised $50 million in Series C funding in 2011 at a $600 million valuation, but investors were already asking tough questions about how Foursquare would compete against tech giants with unlimited resources and billion-user platforms. Beyond competition, the fundamental behavior that made Foursquare successful was becoming culturally exhausting. Check-in fatigue set in as the novelty wore off, and people realized they had been documenting every mundane movement for months or years. The badges that once felt rewarding began feeling arbitrary. Did anyone really need recognition for visiting drugstores 5 times in a month? Mayorships became less meaningful as casual users stopped caring about titles and power users monopolized them through obsessive checking in. The social dynamics grew complicated as users felt pressure to check in consistently or risk disappointing friends who expected to see their location updates. Some users reported anxiety about forgetting to check in, while others grew tired of friends who seemed to check in everywhere seeking attention. The app's social feed became cluttered with routine check-ins at grocery stores, gas stations, and other locations nobody found interesting. Restaurant servers grew annoyed with customers who demanded to know the exact venue name on Foursquare before ordering, and some businesses complained about users who visited briefly just to check in without making purchases. By 2012, many early adopters were checking in less frequently, and new user acquisition was becoming increasingly difficult as location sharing moved from trendy to tedious. The company tried refreshing the experience with new features and badge categories, but the core problem remained. They had trained users to share everything, and everything turned out to be mostly boring. The monetization challenges proved even more complex than user retention. While Foursquare had successfully built detailed profiles of user movement patterns and preferences, data that should have been incredibly valuable for advertising, actually converting that data into sustainable revenue proved difficult. The company launched merchant platforms allowing businesses to offer deals to frequent visitors, but most small businesses lacked the technical sophistication to manage location-based marketing campaigns effectively. Larger brands experimented with Foursquare promotions, but measuring return on investment was complicated, and many campaigns failed to drive meaningful business results. The company tried charging businesses for enhanced analytics about customer visits, but most merchants preferred free alternatives or simply tracking customers through existing point-of-sale systems. Advertising revenue remained modest compared to other social platforms because Foursquare's user engagement, while location-rich, was often brief. People opened the app to check in quickly, then closed it, providing limited opportunity for ad exposure. By 2013, despite having accumulated over 4 billion check-ins and 45 million registered users, Foursquare was generating only an estimated $20 million in annual revenue. The company raised an additional $41 million in funding, but the writing was on the wall. They needed to pivot away from consumer social networking towards something more sustainable if they wanted to survive as an independent company. The beginning of the end came in 2014 when Foursquare made the controversial decision to split their app in two, separating check-ins into a new app called Swarm, while repositioning the main Foursquare app as a local discovery service similar to Yelp. The move alienated core users who had built up years of check-in history and social connections, many of whom simply stopped using either app rather than adapting to the new system. Swarm removed many beloved features including mayorships and most badges, while the new Foursquare app felt like a completely different product that competed directly with established players like Yelp and Google Maps. User reviews were brutal, with the App Store filled with one-star ratings from former fans who felt betrayed by the company's decision to abandon what made Foursquare special. Check-in volume on Swarm never approached the levels Foursquare had achieved at its peak, and many users migrated to Instagram, Facebook, or other platforms for location sharing. The split also created technical problems as friends found themselves scattered across different apps with incompatible features and social graphs. Dennis Crowley later admitted the transition was handled poorly, but defended the strategic necessity of the pivot. By the end of 2014, it was clear that Foursquare's era as a mainstream consumer app was over, even though the company would continue operating as a location data business serving other companies rather than individual users. Looking back, Foursquare's rise and fall perfectly captured a unique moment in smartphone adoption when location sharing felt revolutionary rather than routine. The company successfully gamified real-world exploration and made checking in a social activity that connected digital relationships with physical spaces. Their influence on the broader tech industry was enormous. The concepts of location-based social networking, gamified mobile experiences, and hyperlocal business recommendations all became standard features across countless other apps and services. Facebook's adoption of check-in functionality validated Foursquare's core insight about the social value of location sharing, while their recommendation algorithms influenced how every major platform approaches local discovery today. The detailed location data that Foursquare collected during their peak years became the foundation for a successful business-to-business pivot, with their location intelligence now powering services for major retailers, advertisers, and app developers who need to understand foot traffic and consumer behavior patterns. Even the privacy concerns that helped doom consumer adoption of Foursquare proved prescient, as location tracking became one of the most contentious issues in modern technology. The lessons from Foursquare's trajectory about the difficulty of competing with platform giants, the importance of sustainable monetization, and the challenges of changing user behavior continue influencing startup strategy and venture capital decision-making more than a decade later. Foursquare's legacy isn't just that they made location sharing mainstream before Facebook killed their business model. It's that they proved people would enthusiastically gamify their own lives if you gave them the right incentives and social framework. For a brief moment in the early smartphone era, millions of users willingly documented their every movement, turning routine errands into competitive social experiences and transforming anonymous urban spaces into venues with digital identities and social histories. The company's ultimate failure as a consumer product doesn't diminish their cultural impact or their role in establishing location-based services as a fundamental category of mobile applications. Today, when you share your location on Instagram stories, check in on Facebook, or see how many friends are at a restaurant on Snapchat, you're experiencing the direct descendants of what Dennis Crowley and Naveen Selvadurai created with Foursquare. The difference is that location sharing is now embedded within larger social platforms rather than being the primary purpose of a standalone app. Foursquare discovered that people would share their location obsessively, but they also proved that location alone wasn't enough to build a sustainable social network that could compete with the tech giants who eventually absorbed their best ideas and left them searching for a new business model in the location data industry where they operate today.